Brian Windhorst, very busy, ESPN senior NBA writer. Before I get to the topics of today, can you give the audience a little bit of the backstory? You went to the same high school as LeBron and then started covering him eventually. When he made the decision, did that affected your life as well in covering LeBron that day?
Yeah, I mean, ESPN eventually hired me and I moved to Miami. But it was, ESPN and I had talked before and we thought there was a chance he was going to go to Chicago or New York, if he left Cleveland. And they had operations in Chicago and New York already. And when he went to Miami, crickets, crickets, absolute crickets. And so a couple of months passed, and I was actually in Thailand on vacation when I got a call from ESPN. Hey, would you want to move to Miami? So yeah, that's how that went.
Okay, but then you have to say to your wife, we're moving to Miami?
My wife was in law school at Ohio State, so I mean we were engaged. So it was no, it was not exactly a clean situation, but I haven't. It was a tough for a few months, but I haven't regretted it.
But if I would ask you 30 minutes before the decision where you thought LeBron was going to go, what would you have thought?
Well, I knew it was Miami. I actually think that it was a stunner to me that the Cleveland was that shocked. I guess social media wasn't as a thing as much in 2010 because there was multiple reports that he was going to Miami during that day. I wrote a story that was on Cleveland Plain Dealers website that basically said this. I couldn't independently confirm it, but I was, it was out there. Obviously, you could have had a last minute change of heart. I would not have ruled that out. I don't know if LeBron would have ruled it out. Um, but I was kind of surprised at how amazed Cleveland was because obviously they were hanging on every piece of information. Here we had all this information, and yeah. So the world didn't know. I think today there's no way that could have been kept secret. Is the way it ended up doing so back in 2010.
I remember Jared Dudley, for some reason, came out and said that LeBron was going to the Knicks. And he's at the Boys and Girls Club in Greenwich, and we thought, okay, he's going to the Knicks. Was that ever a possibility for LeBron?
The only clarity that I had from LeBron's camp that week was that it was not going to be the Knicks, and I said as much, and was totally did radio in New York, and they told me I was absolutely out of my mind. That him doing it in Greenwich guaranteed it, and I was like, okay. Actually, Dan Stephen A. Smith, he had it like he was a few days early, and he called it. I think shortly after Bosch and Wade kind of made a co-announcement which that doesn't get remembered. You know how Bosch and Wade announced they were going to play for the Heat? I mean, Wade was already, but to re-sign. Michael Wilbon did a 45-second to minute interview on the Noon Sports Center on like a Wednesday afternoon. Bosch and Wade were sitting together. They threw to Wilbon. He did it. It was wrapped in 2.5 minutes. Back to baseball highlights. And then LeBron had his own show, maybe 3-4 days later.
Brian Windhorst, ESPN senior NBA writer. I'm wondering, is the Joker joking with us? Like he's got a unique sense of humor. The parade, he doesn't want to go to the parade. He forgot the MVP trophy. And I wonder is he joking? Is he fooling us with this personality here?
Well, look, I believe that he may not care about the accoutrements. Like he may not care about the physical hardware. But I don't believe he doesn't care. This concept that this is just something I do from 9 to 5 or whatever the shift is, and that he's just like, I got to get back to my family. I don't believe that. I don't believe somebody becomes that skilled and that amazing at their craft, who studies and is so mentally prepared, who doesn't care. And I do believe he cares about the MVP. He may not care about it like other people do, and he may not speak about it. And I do believe he cares about winning. And excuse me, did you see him screaming on the bench in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
You think that's a man who doesn't care? I mean, he absolutely cares. He just shows it in a different way, and he has his priorities in a bit of a different order. I do believe, however, that he would prefer to be in Serbia, because I'm sure the parade, everything in Denver was totally cool. I mean, there was unfortunately a shooting, but generally it was okay after they won the title the other night. it was a pain in the butt to get out of central Denver, though. And I am very glad I am not having to be a part of that parade today. So I get Jokic not wanting to do the parade.
There's wishful reporting in all sports that we hope that there's something because that gives us something to talk about. So it could be Zion moving on or they move on from him. It could be Dame in Portland. It could be Bradley Beal in Washington. If you were going to rank those three, not wishful reporting, but actual reporting, the likelihood that who was moved, where would you start?
I think the most likely of those is Beal to get traded. The Wizards may not term it a rebuild, but they can't bring the same team back. They had like the ninth highest payroll this year and didn't even make the play in. Not acceptable. You don't need like incredible insider analysis to know that they don't want to bring that team back. And the contract for Beal is onerous. You have to separate Beal the player and Beal the contract, because right now what we're talking about is the contract. I think the Wizards want out of that contract. Michael Winger, who just got hired, didn't sign it. Then I think Zion, although I'm not convinced it's going to happen because his value, it's not a good time to trade him. His value is low. I just think that they've reached a point there in New Orleans where they are now saying, well, what are our options? And I'm kind of surprised at how out there it is, Dan. Like, I'm being very careful in how I'm couching what I'm saying because I'm very sensitive to aggregation. And the last thing that I want is report : Windhorst says Pelicans to trade Zion. I don't believe that.
Okay.
But that said, over the last 3 or 4 days, as I talk to more and more teams, I continue to hear more conversations that the Pelicans are having about it. So you can try to infer that. I think that there's a significant interest in them in judging the market. And then Lillard, as of right now, and I have to underscore right now, it's 11:30 Eastern on Thursday, June 15th. As of right now, I think he wants to be a Blazer. I think the Blazers are trying to make moves to support him. The trades that I have heard the Blazers in negotiations for over the last few days are trades that are centered around building around Dame. If they don't make a deal, if they end up drafting a teenager with the third pick next week, I do think Dame could reevaluate and say, what are we doing here? But you're asking me right now at 11:31. Right now, Dame is not being traded, nor is he asking to be traded.
Yeah, he gets older, they get younger. That's not a recipe for winning anything in Portland.
Well, to be honest with you, don't tell anybody this, but the Blazers kind of already started a rebuild. They tanked the last 2 years.
But why not just continue then, Brian?
See, this is the thing. Like, if they were hiring me as a consultant, I would say you had the number 8 pick last year. They drafted Shaden Sharp, who's got a high upside. They have the number 3 pick this year. You're already halfway there.
Sure.
You could see what the market could get you for Dame, but I also don't have to fill the Moda Center. I don't have to sit there in front of the fans. They have not been competitive with Dame the last couple of years, as good as he is. So I would say, if I were them, I would seriously consider saying, we've already kind of started the rebuild, and what could we get for Dame right now? My God, the offers would be robust. But that is not how they are acting. That is not what Joe Cronin, the general manager, has said. That is not how they are acting. They are behaving as if they are trying to build right now around a guy who's been the best player in franchise history. And I understand that as well.
You know, Bradley Beal doesn't move the needle. He's a good player. He get you 23, 24 points, but nobody's showing up to go, boy, I got to go see Bradley Beal play. If you're the Miami Heat or whoever it might be, and they say, all right, I'm bringing in Bradley Beal at $47 million. And he's not somebody who, I mean, he might make you better, but he's not making you more interesting. What's the market? It feels like there's a lot of teams that could be interested in Bradley Beal. Help me understand why, a guy at age 30.
Yeah, so this is the thing. There's nobody ever going to say anything bad about him. They like him as a player. The Wizards, he's played 90 games the last 2 years combined. He's got a no trade clause. The Wizards are not in position to contend this year. If the Wizards keep him and he has another injury plagued year, or he doesn't as another all non All-Star season, they're in a rough position, Dan. And in all honesty, the Wizards getting out of that contract is potentially the asset that they get in trading for Bradley Beal. And I have to underscore this. Please listen, aggregators. It's not that they don't like Bradley Beal, the person or the player. It's the contract. The contract is the problem in combination with the new rules that are coming into the NBA, which is if you hit this, what they call the second apron, you might as well be in leg irons and shackles to improve your team. The owners are forcing parity down the throat of the league, and they are saying you are not going to have a high dollar third best player anymore. No LA Clippers, no Brooklyn Nets, no Golden State Warriors. You're not going to have payrolls that are $100 million more than the rest of us. They can spend that much money, but they have made it impossible really to do it for more than a year. And so going forward, teams are going to be extremely careful about what they pay like their guys who are not their uber stars. So for example, the Denver Nuggets have three max players. Jokic he's a bargain at twice the price. Murray, absolutely. Murray is going to get extended if he wants to this summer. Michael Porter, I think in a couple of years, you will not be able to have Michael Porter. And I don't just mean the Nuggets. I mean any team. You will not be able to have a third player who is on a max salary, who is basically that type of player. And the problem is Bradley Beal, maybe today he's a number 2, but what about in 2 years? Maybe then he's a number 3, and he's going to be making $50 million with a no trade clause. So that is what the issue is here when it comes to Beal. It's that contract combined with the new rules. And in the fairness to the Wizards, when they signed him to this deal last year, they didn't know these new rules were coming in. And they have been throwing a curveball here. And it is taken Michael Winger, their new president, if he would come in and look at the lay of the land, of course, he's like, boy, can we do something here? And they're going to say everything wonderfully about Beal publicly, and they are going to mean it. But they have got to try to get out of that contract. And that is why, if there's a trade, people are probably going to be surprised at how low he goes for. Last summer, when we saw Gobert and Donovan Mitchell get traded, it was like, oh my God, because frankly, Beal's resume is better than those guys at the level or better. But when you see what Beal gets traded for versus what you see what those guys get traded for, people are going to be stunned. And it's going to take a while for them to understand why. And they're going to say, well, what's wrong with him? What do we don't? And there's nothing. It's not a commentary on him as a player.
Ja Morant, when and how much?
Well, I don't work in PR, but today is the Nuggets parade, and next week is NBA draft week. I think Wembanyama is going to get eliminated tonight in the French League playoffs, and I expect he will be on U.S. soil by next week. I don't think Adam Silver wants Ja Morant to be the thing. Plus, what day is tomorrow? I think it's Friday. So
that was my guess that it would be tomorrow. There's a cushion before you get to the NBA draft.
So, and I'm just going to say, I wish I could tell you, Dan, oh yes, my sources have told me it is 36 games. I don't know what it's going to be. I just don't know. I actually don't even have a feel. I don't even want to guess, but I am going to say that at the end of the regular season, the NBA gave out one of the most severe suspensions they've given in Adam Silver's tenure as commissioner to Miles Bridges from the Charlotte Hornets, who pled no contest to a felony domestic abuse charge. He was given 30 games for that plea. I don't know the proper legal term for that. However, that legal thing played out, he admitted fault, or I don't know how it works, but 30 games. So I know that there are people who as soon as they heard what Adam Silver said, leapt to the conclusion that, oh my gosh, it's going to be a year. It's going to be 7 years. They may never let him into a game. A couple of things here. One, Adam, the standard is the standard. Two, this guy is extraordinarily valuable to this league. And they and the NBA want this to be a bump in the road. They want Ja to be a superstar in this league for a decade plus. So they have got to make sure that what they're doing here is helping him take corrective action, not push him away. And so, no matter what the suspension is, I'm sure there will be howls about it. But this is a very delicate situation with a player who's extremely important both now and into the future.
If I said you could have Ja Morant or Zion moving forward,
Well, I'm worried about both of them because they both play with kind of reckless abandon. Every time Ja jumps, I get worried because he has such explosive athleticism. I mean, he is such a joy to watch. He plays like his hair's on fire. I mean, it's amazing to watch him play. If I was a young kid just learning and watching the game, I would be so attracted to his style of play. And Zion Williamson is probably the best. He and Jokic are the two best interior scorers since Shaq. And Zion is 6 inches shorter. Zion is an absolute offensive machine. I have immense belief in his talent, but he lands like a ton of bricks every time he jumps. Like it's both of them. Ja because he's 7 feet off the ground, and Zion because he just lands like a skyscraper falling. So I don't have all the data on what they're when they do those tests on those machines and they see their load. I mean, I'd be worried about both of them, but Ja has demonstrated more health, and I'm frankly more focus on the game. So I would pick Ja, but I'm worried about both of them because they're both so important to the future league. Take a look at the guys who are under 25. If you draw a line at 25-year-olds and down, the NBA needs those guys really, really badly. And this is not it's not a joke. I know people make fun of Zion and whatever. This is real talk. This is a league that needs those guys to be great, and they are magnetic in both of their ways. They are magnetic, and so it's definitely something to be worried about.
final question: if LeBron leaves to play with his son someplace, do you have to move?
No, no, I'm done moving for LeBron, but I will say that USC games are now going to be one of the big draws for this next season.
You got a credential already for USC basketball?
I have been to Bronny James basketball games. I have to cop to that.
Great to talk to you, Brian. Thank you. We appreciate your time. All right, that's Brian Windhorst, ESPN senior NBA writer.